program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
This meeting of the Eau Claire City Council will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton. Emmanuel. Aye. Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Here.
Strobel.
Here.
T-Walt.
Here.
Von Hayden. Weld.
Here.
Worthman. Zhang.
Here.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, and welcome everyone to the Monday, December 11th, 2017 session of the Eau Claire City Council. During its Monday night sessions, the Council listens to public input and conducts public discussion in which we invite the public to inform us about matters that are on their mind and help us make our decision at our legislative session, which convenes tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. in these chambers. We do have some interesting items on our agenda tonight. A couple quick hearings on zoning and some aldermanic districts, and then we'll move right into a discussion about public parking. For council members, a reminder that we will be ending the evening with a closed session item after the public portion of the meeting has completed. We do welcome citizens who are joining us in chambers tonight and are grateful, as always, to community television for streaming and broadcasting these proceedings for people who cannot attend in person. For those of you who wish to speak, I'll just briefly review the protocol. After we introduce an agenda item and have a staff presentation, then is the time for public input. You may approach the podium at the time for public input and begin by stating your name and your address, and then begin speaking about what is on your mind. We do give each speaker 5 minutes. We found this to be a fair amount of time. It helps the meeting go along, and it gives the last speaker the same amount of time as the first speaker. We find it to be a fair system. You do not need to speak for 5 minutes, but they are there should you need that time. After you're done making your comments, sometimes we have questions to clarify a point that you had been trying to make. So if you would linger at the podium for just a moment until I ask if there are questions, that's also very helpful for us. And lastly, if you do want to make a comment tonight but you aren't comfortable speaking, there are written comment sheets. They are blue at the back of chambers. You can write that out, and they are distributed to us tomorrow before our legislative session. And if you have any questions or problems during the meeting, Ms. Merle, who sits right here, is happy to help you out with any concern that might be on your mind. With that introduction, we will begin our meeting for tonight with item number 1, which is a public hearing on an ordinance rezoning property at 4803 and 4819 Bullis Farm Road from C3P to R3P. Mr. Tufte.
Good evening. This is the property. It is located off of Bullis Farm Road, south of Keystone Crossing. There's R1 zoning to the west and north. There's multifamily R3 zoning across the road, and then commercial zoning to the east and to the south. That's an aerial photo then of the site. This is a ridge line, and there's new single-family homes that have been built up on that ridge line. It's substantially higher than this site. There's a new apartment here and more apartments planned across the road. That's the Holiday Inn. Whipley's new office buildings under construction right here. This is the general development plan for the property, showing the layout of 3 buildings on the site. These 2 are assisted living memory care facilities. This is just an assisted living facility. And that is a rendering of the two smaller assisted living memory care facilities. This general development plan shows two 20-unit assisted living memory care CBRFs and then an 80-unit assisted living CBRF. This request is also to allow special zoning permission since these three CBRFs are over 16 residents and they will be within 2,500 feet of each other. There is a narrative provided by applicant that further explains the request. The two 20-unit buildings are one-story assisted living facilities, and this 80-unit is a three-story assisted living facility, and it's a second phase will be built later on for the project. They do have shared driveway and parking between them. In terms of the rezoning, the comprehensive plan identifies the site as being appropriate for commercial development. The comprehensive plan text states in areas designated as commercial on the planned land use map, the city will consider residential zoning based on a set of criteria that is included in the report. We would note this property is across the street from a site that was rezoned from commercial to residential for apartments. The new homes that are above grade up here have a substantial separation from this project because of the graded and wooded hillside between them. The development does show 6.91 acres of the site will remain as a wooded conservancy, and that is highlighted in the crosshatched. The traffic impact from this project is limited since most of the people that live at these facilities do not drive cars, and surface water will be reviewed with final site plans for the project. The Plan Commission did find the proposed downzoning of this property is consistent with those provisions of the comprehensive plan, and it would be compatible with surrounding development. In terms of the community-based residential facility review, we did place in the report the provisions of city code applicable to those types of requests. Wisconsin statutes require CBRFs to obtain special zoning permission if the project is more than 16 residents or within 2,500 feet of an existing CBRF. This proposal is 3 CBRFs, all of them having more than 16 residents. An applicant notes that the proposal will have a total of 120 dwelling units and 144 residents in total. And these 3 CBRFs are within 2,500 feet of each other. We would note the project will have or will be required to provide adequate utilities, access, parking, drainage, and other site improvements, since final site plans will need to be reviewed by the Plan Commission. Again, the project will not create traffic congestion in the area since these residents do not drive, and the R3 zoning is the appropriate zoning for these types of projects. In your report, we did attach the city engineer's report on the availability of city services. The Plan Commission has recommended approval of this request with conditions. 1, Plan Commission approval of final site plans, and 2, the special zoning permission is for these 3 CBRFs as stated in the attached narratives. Are there any questions?
Councilmember Mitchell. Thank you. So, Mr. Tufte, what happens if eventually the applicant decides not to build the second phase, the 80 unit?
They can build up to 80 units, up to 3 stories under what is being proposed. If they want to build something smaller, that's fine. If they want to build something bigger or something different, they have to go back through a public hearing process and amend the zoning they are requesting.
So what if they decided not to build a CBRF? Then they'd have to start over?
Yes, they'd have to come back and build and get approval through a rezoning process. Yes.
And we'd look at things like traffic, for example, at that point?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Strobel.
Thank you, Mr. Tufte. Do you know if these are not-for-profit or if they do pay property taxes on the value of the development?
Applicant is here this evening. You could ask him that question.
And then I had one more question for Mr. Tufte. How is our availability of space for commercial development out in that area? Do we have more commercial space available? Or we
have a lot of commercial space available in this community. We were wise to place in our comprehensive plan the ability to do these types of downzoning. It is a popular downzoning being considered to allow for multifamily development within the community. We've got a project right across the road. We had a few months ago, over 1 million square foot of vacant commercial building within this community. Fortunately, some of that's being reused with Festival now reopening some of the grocers and other uses using up that commercial space. But that's the one prevalent use in the community we have. The Amazon era has caused a lot of that stuff to close up, and it's adjusting in the marketplace is the best way to look at it. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Council, did you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Does he have a question? No. Okay. I see no further questions other than, is the conservancy area a voluntary agreement and add in perpetuity, or?
It is a combination of voluntary and 20% slope, which then by city code is rendered non-buildable also. So.
And the voluntary conservancy is set for 50 years or something?
It's set by the development plan for the property. Again, they could come in and amend it just as Councilmember Mitchell had noted earlier if they chose. But at this time, this is their development plan for the property.
Did you design the formula for the conservancy area?
No,
ratio?
they chose to make this submittal as shown here. The city code would only have them set aside the 20% slope areas as non-buildable.
Yeah. It's kind of refreshing thinking, so it's good. And is the parking by formula for the CBRF?
There is a standard in city code of 0.75 stalls per dwelling unit for elderly. We found most of these types of facilities, since none of these residents drive, don't need that type of parking. They will normally submit a parking analysis with final site plans to the Plan Commission and request less parking.
Yeah, that's good too. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tufte. I'll ask the applicant if they would like to speak about the project. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Lyons. I'm with Azura Living. The address is 1233 North Mayfair Road in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So just to give everyone a little bit of background here, I'll be brief since I did give a little bit of a longer presentation at the Plan Commission last week. But Azura was founded in 2008 by Josh McClellan. Josh has over 20 years experience in the senior living industry and founded Azura Memory Care to transform the culture of care. Culture of memory care, excuse me. So we operate exclusively memory care assisted living projects throughout the state of Wisconsin. We've got 14 locations throughout the state, and we currently have an existing location in Eau Claire. We are a for-profit company, so we would be subject to property tax on this new project. Excuse me. So our existing community here in Eau Claire is a 20-bed community. It was built in the mid-'90s and was built based on the environment for senior living and memory care at that point in time. Our design and our technology to be able to care for folks in memory care has grown pretty substantially over the last 20 years, and we're looking to implement our newest prototype of design at this project, which is far and above the current building that we have. We currently have about 21 employees in our current facility, and those employees and the residents that we have in our current building would be moved over into this new community, and then we would have the ability to grow into the additional 20 beds in the first phase that was shown there. And I have an image here that I can show. So our current plan is to build the two 20-bed communities, 40 total, as phase one, and then the phase two portion, which was shown here, is just being reserved for future development. The reason for that is just based on the demand curve and what we're seeing for Alzheimer's and dementia throughout the country. So currently within Eau Claire County, there are 2,000 people approximately living with some form of Alzheimer's and dementia. That number is expected to grow by up to 17% per year over the next 5 years. That actually equates nationally, there's approximately 16 million people in the United States living with some form of Alzheimer's or dementia. And the average age for residents in a community like Azura operates is 82 years of age. And so that's indicated based on the live births in this, this is a graph of live births throughout history back to 1909. So current residents who are 82 years old were born in the mid-1930s, as indicated by this arrow. And so you can just see from a general population standpoint what the curve looks like from a population perspective over the next several years. The estimate is that there could be as many as 50 million people living with Alzheimer's and dementia across the United States by the time we get into 50 years from now, but by the time we get into the bulk of the baby boomer population. So there will be a significant ongoing need for care, even if there are advancements in the medical situation and the medications that are available for folks with Alzheimer's. The demand is still going to grow tremendously. So we just want to have the ability with this zoning to be able to grow as the community needs more assistance caring for folks. So. And then there's a couple of additional renderings from the proposed community, what we're looking at currently. I think this one was shown previously, what the exterior looks like, and this is a rendering. This is very similar to what we just built in a previous community in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, and very residential interior and exterior, and creating a home environment for our residents in which we can provide care in that home when they're no longer able to receive care in their personal homes. So that's what we do. That's the project that we're looking to do here, and I appreciate your consideration and would ask if there are any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Von Hayden has a question.
This isn't so much as for the council to make a decision on this, but more for curiosity's sake. You mentioned currently you have a 20-bed facility, and that you'll be transferring the residents from there to the new facility?
Correct.
And then what will you be doing with the old facility?
That is to be determined. We've been exploring some community needs with some other community partners. The idea has come up that it may end up being a hospice house or another type of care facility, but we're exploring those options as we go through the process here.
Okay. What's your anticipated timeline of filling up the other 20 beds in the 40-bed unit? Roughly.
So just overall timeline, our plan is to obviously go through the approval process, but assuming that everything goes well, we would like to break ground on this project in late spring, early summer, as soon as the conditions are allowable, and then it would be about a 10-month construction process. So we would be attempting to do some pre-leasing, but given the nature of our residents, long-term pre-lease is not really viable. So I think we would like to be 100% full in one of the two buildings when we open, and then we generally forecast anywhere from 3 to 5 units per month as an absorption rate.
Okay.
So it's not going to be a long absorption period.
Thank you.
And I see no further questions. Thank you for your presentation tonight.
Thank you for your consideration.
You bet. We decide at our legislative session tomorrow, a little bit different than the Plan Commission.
Okay. Thank you.
Is anyone else here to speak to this zoning proposal change? Seeing none, the chair will close item 1, bring our attention to item number 2, which is a public hearing on a charter ordinance related to the city council and the reapportionment of aldermanic districts within the city. Ms. Repo.
Okay. I can see that. All right, since the last time you revised the charter ordinance, the council has approved 3 annexations which require new voting wards. So those will be wards 70, 71, and 72. The determining factor for whether we need a new ward is whether they're in the same state assembly district or the same county supervisory district. One of the wards has a different county supervisory district. That's the mega annexation. They're in the 10th. The adjoining city property is in the 21st. And then the other two annexations, the Horn annexation on Sherman Creek Road and the Grover Road annexation, they're in the 93rd Assembly District, and the city property is in the 91st Assembly District. So there will be two items on tomorrow's agenda. One is a resolution creating the new wards, and then the charter ordinance, which adds the new wards to the aldermanic districts.
Questions for Ms. Riepel? We can absorb the increased voting population without any problem?
There actually is no voting population I'm aware of.
There will be.
There will be, but not right now.
Okay, and we'll
Okay.
cross that bridge when we come to it?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Riepel. Any members of the public wanting to comment on our growing aldermanic districts? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing portion of our meeting and open up our one public discussion tonight, which is a discussion on an ordinance amending tables 8 and 9 of the code entitled Parking Prohibited and Parking During Specified Hours. Mr. Sobert.
Good evening.
Evening.
We have a number of minor changes to our parking restrictions throughout the city that were brought to us either through operational needs with large, with refuse haulers, or student transportation with student transit, or in one instance was brought to our attention through a neighborhood association and a city council member recommending or passing on the comments from the neighborhood association to us. The first location that was brought, that we examined, was on Doty Street and Newton Street. And this is on the East Side Hill. It is up the hill from the Park Tower Apartments in the downtown. The East Side Hill Cemetery, or the Forest Hill Cemetery, is over here. Here is an aerial showing where that lies with Park Tower Apartments, Harding Avenue Hill. The current streets on Doty Street, they're both very narrow. Doty Street here is 26 feet wide. Newton Street is 24 feet wide. Neither has parking restrictions currently. When you have parking on both sides, that eliminates 16 feet of the roadway width to traverse. So if you have a 24-foot wide street, that would only leave 8 feet of the street for navigation for vehicles. The 26-foot wide street would have 10 feet to travel. A standard city lane that you see on Brackett Avenue is 11 feet, and on a state highway is 12 feet. So they're narrower than you would normally travel for one lane on a normal highway. And this picture was taken that illustrates on Newton Street what the concern was with student transit. As they are picking up children in the area, if vehicles are parked on both sides, it makes it virtually impossible for school buses to traverse through the neighborhood to pick up children. So we went out and looked at it. We did experience those conditions, and because of the narrow streets and consistency with other narrow streets in neighborhoods that have busing and other operational concerns, in particular, Third Ward has a number of narrow streets where parking is restricted on one side. We support these changes for the safety improvements and the operational improvements so we can get the large vehicles, much less emergency vehicles if there were something to occur, and also refuse haulers and other plowing operations that the city has. So what the restriction would be prohibiting parking on the north side of Newton Street from 75 feet, 200 feet west of Doty Street up to Dodge Street, and then on Doty Street on the east side from Newton Street 75 feet to the south. With that, I'll take any questions on this batch, and then I'll cover the next.
Is anyone here to speak about Doty Street? Mm-hmm.
My name is Ellen Newman. I go by Joey. I live on the corner of Dodge Street and Newton Street, on the top of the Dodge Street hill at 920 Dodge Street. I would like my brother to speak for me because he did measurements for me and.
Hi, I'm Dave Schultz. I live at 3220 Benwood Lane in down to Pleasant Valley. Okay. This doesn't show the real representation of her house. Her house is right on the corner, that corner lot on Dodge and Newton Street. And her property, the road there on Newton Street is 30 feet wide. It's not 24 or whatever. The entire road is not. Where she lives, it's 30 feet wide. And I don't know, will this show up in here or? Okay, there. Like I say, she lives right on the corner of this. And this is her roadway. If you notice, once it gets by the garage area there, it does sweep out to what I measured 25 feet. But this is her garage and her house. And at that point, right there and right up to her garage is 30 feet. Now, apparently when they redid this road, they resurfaced it about 2 years ago.
2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years ago, and basically, that's like a parking area there, alongside of there. They made it 5 feet wider at that point.
It was wider. When they resurfaced it, they went over the top of the old road and built it up higher.
Yeah, it's about, at least a good 3 inches higher than what her driveway is even. So she's got quite the driveway going down into her garage area. But I wanted that pointed out that that is 30 feet at that point, right to there. And it does narrow down to 25 feet, the rest of it beyond her garage, which would be this area right through there all the way. That is narrower. And I can see somebody's point where it isn't easy, if 2 cars meet down in that area, if there's people parked on each side, you would have a problem. But that's the big thing I wanted to point out, is that area right there. That it's just like if you go up there and look at it, I don't know how many people know that area, but if you go up there and look at it, you'll see that that was purposely did that way for a parking area. Otherwise, if you kept on going straight, you'd run into it right into the hill. So it does jet out to 25 feet. If you measure a car is right around anywhere from 5 to 6 feet wide. A school bus going down there is a maximum of 8.5 feet wide. I know these from previous experience, and you can look that up. So, yeah, if it was only 24 feet or 25 feet in this area, it would be a problem. But I can see no problem, at least where she lives, why that can't start at this area up by where her garage, where it jets out to 24 or 25 feet like I measured it. So that's what I wanted to bring up. I don't know if you have any other
Well,
things you want.
another concern I have is the street is built up high, and every time they plow in the winter, they put the snow on my side of the road, and so when it melts, since they raised the street and resurfaced over the top of the old street, when it melts, my driveway is like a suction that draws the melting snow. And ever since they raised the street, I have water in half of my garage every time it thaws. And I just feel if they put no parking signs in that area, that it's going to give me more of a problem. The city for sure will pile the snow in that area. I've called the city every winter 2 or 3 times and had them come and move the snow because it was all melting and going in my garage. And that's part of the reason why I'm concerned at not being able to park there. My driveway is a lake every time it thaws, and now since the pavement's been raised in the street, which the middle of the street is about level with my sidewalk, it all melts down and goes in my garage, and during thawing periods, sometimes I can't even park in my own garage because of this. And I would like to be able to park on the side of my house at least. Does anybody have questions?
I don't, looks like Councilmember Weld has a question for you, right here.
Thank you, Council President. Just clarification, I don't know if you can put the map back up there with the
one that
the city provided.
Oh,
The city? This is the
No,
one.
the-
well, that's the one they, there we go, I got so many maps here. What do we got there? Okay,
So your house is right there on the corner of Dodge and Newton, is that correct?
Dodge and Newton, yeah.
Okay, and where the black line is drawn in front of it. And then there's your house and then the garage, and then the alley starts right after the garage?
The alley isn't on that side, that's on the
Other side.
opposite side. There's no alley on the side
Okay.
that she lives on. If
Okay.
you go by hers, then the alley's to the left.
Okay.
There's an alley. Now, I don't know if there's been any statistics on accidents in that area. She's lived there almost 30 years. She can't remember of an accident in that area or that intersection or anything.
Also, the opposite corner adjacent from my house is an empty lot, so there would be no visibility problems.
Well, thank you both.
I appreciate you hearing me out.
Thank you.
We appreciate your presentation. Thank you both. We'll be getting on that road business. And then our next project?
One thing I neglected to mention at the start of this is, for all of these locations, we did send letters out to all the property owners that were in the areas that were affected to make sure that they were aware of the hearing this evening, so. All right. The next location is on the Hastings Way frontage road. It was the frontage road north of Seymour Road that was constructed last year. Here is an aerial map of the section in question. Seymour Road is here. Hastings Way runs north-south. This frontage road was reconstructed up to Peeble Street. Here's Seymour Road. Currently, that road is continued in the Table 9 of the ordinances stating parking during specified hours as amended as follows, 2 hours when posted. So if both sides are posted for 2-hour parking, then that would dictate. If no signs are posted, then the restrictions of 2 hours do not apply. Working with the business owners in this area and consistency with the frontage road south of Seymour Road, there was a request to look at not having 2-hour parking signs along the west side, which there are currently no signs on the west side, which would allow for longer term parking than 2 hours. and having parking prohibited on the east side of the frontage road, north of Seymour Road. That is consistent with the frontage road south of Seymour Road. This is a picture of the street that was constructed. The cars utilizing the longer parking on the west side, nobody utilizing the 2-hour parking that you see along the east side. Prohibiting parking on the east side would be a safety improvement. It would keep cars from being parked in between the driveways, making it safer to turn into the driveways and turn out. And it does provide access for longer-term parking on the frontage road. For the safety improvement and the customer service improvement for the parking needs, we are supportive of this change. With that, I'll take any questions.
I see none, but thank you. Did anyone come to render an opinion about the Hastings Way Frontage Road project? Okay, I see none, so we can, Councilmember T-Walt has a question. Oh.
Can I sneak up?
Sure.
Thank you. Dr. Max Menneker is my name. My address is 4529 North Havenwood Lane. I don't know why I'm getting nervous, but I am. I just would like to just say from a standpoint that the recommendations here would be great for the business on North Hastings Way. We've had a little bit of a difficulty early on in the year from a standpoint of the double 2-hour postings on each side of the road. It kind of impeded our business model a little in that area. I'm a dentist. I've been here 23 years in Eau Claire. A lot of my clients are there a little longer than 2 hours, and especially if we utilize that drive the street for some flow parking. So it's really helpful from that standpoint. It takes a little stress off the businesses in that building. And I just wanted to voice my opinion in regards. I think that's a good move by the city to just give us at least half of that. I've been in the facility for 16 years now. The last 15 years, we had just the 2-hour parking on the east side of the roadway and unlimited parking on the west side. We really can't say there was ever any issues in regards to safety problems. Everybody was very mindful of the mailboxes, but makes a lot of sense if we can keep it open for the driveways. So I just want to voice my opinion on that, and thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Okay. We can, and another gentleman, Mr. Silver. Good evening.
Hi, everyone. Rich Burgett. I live at 1516 Pine Park Drive. I'm a tenant. I own the Burgett Insurance Agency. I'm in the same building as Dr. Max Menneker. I'm just on the north side of that, in that building. On this map, this apron right here would lead up to the side of the office building that we occupy. And just like Dr. Max has mentioned, I'm in favor with what's proposed here. It would provide the safety on the east side of the road. It'll provide the access for the city to do its necessary services. And it will still allow for some parking, which we definitely need. The building that we're in, there isn't much for parking, off-street parking, so if we can leave that west side completely unrestricted, that would certainly help for any customers accessing that building. Whether they're coming in to see us at our insurance office, which would hopefully be a shorter time than what they would come to see Dr. Max in his office. But anyway, thank you for bringing this up, and I think that this would certainly help in the businesses along the North Hastings Way area there.
Thank you, Mr. Burchett. Mm-hmm. So, Tim, are you still okay? Okay. We can move to the next project? No?
Okay, the next location is on the south side of Eau Claire on Jill Avenue. Jill Avenue is between Hamilton Avenue and Westover Road, and Grover Road is further to the south. Stein Boulevard lies here. Number of streets in this area. Jill Avenue is narrow compared to its peer streets. It's 28 feet wide from face of curb to face of curb, which leaves 24 feet of asphaltic pavement. We had actually dual notice for this from Student Transit again with difficulty turning, and also passed on to us through a council member after the Neighborhood Association requesting restrictions from parking for 100 feet west of the intersection with Stein Boulevard to allow larger turning vehicles to get straightened away to continue their travel through Jill Avenue. If there is 2 cars parked there, that would leave 12 feet of clear space if they're parked to the curb faces without snow buildup. 12 feet is an adequate and acceptable lane to continue moving through if cars are parked on both sides. So what this does is improves the movement to get the large vehicles into the street, and then there wouldn't be restrictions as you traverse to the west. This is just some aerial photos of that intersection. Showing Stein Boulevard in the forefront. There is a hydrant on the left side, so parking would be restricted 8 feet on either side of the hydrant in this location. The residents of Jill Avenue were sent out a letter notifying of the hearing. We did take feedback in our office, no negative feedback, but our transportation engineer was in contact with a resident who did an unofficial survey of 12 of 13 immediate residents that had said that they were in support of this. And given the lack of any negative comments to our office, that appears to be somewhat accurate of the support for this restriction. With that, I'll take any questions.
Councilmember Wild.
Thank you, Council President. Mr. Solberg, Morgan Avenue, is that wider then, or is that?
Yes, Morgan is 36 feet wide.
Okay.
Here, and then I forget the name of the one here. This is 36 also. So Jill was 8 feet. Gerard up here. Thank you. Jill is 8 feet narrower than its neighboring streets.
And I see no further questions. Thank you. Is anyone here to talk about the Jill Street project? Mm-hmm.
My name is Lawrence Legal, and I live at 3322 Jill Avenue, just down the street from Stein Boulevard, the fifth house, I believe it is. I've talked to a lot of my neighbors for several years since our street, was narrowed. And we didn't really have an issue with the narrow street until the neighborhood to our southwest, a main street leading into that neighborhood between Grover and Violet is the main drag that goes to that neighborhood. It just so happens that Jill Avenue joins Violet in the back, and so a lot of people from that new neighborhood use Jill Avenue to get a route faster to Stein Boulevard. I'm not sure why they do that, because Violet is completely straight and Jill is pretty curvy. Anyway, we've dealt with this issue for a long time, and for some reason or other, the duplexes that are on the corner of Stein and Jill, the one on the north and the south, it just seemed like people were coming and going on a regular basis. And this year, that duplex on the south side was unoccupied for a while, and now there are tons of cars that are related to that duplex. There are 4 spaces. It's a pretty deep driveway. There's a space for 4 cars to park there for that duplex, but it seems like they just park on the street. Another point is that a school bus goes down Jill Avenue. I'm not sure exactly what house it is, but I believe there's a disabled child that's picked up. So that's another problem. When you have 2 cars parked on either side of the street, you got a really narrow lane, and if someone is coming from Stein Boulevard and turning onto Jill, and you happen to be coming up to the stop sign, there's no room for 2 cars there. So this is really going to help our neighborhood in terms of safety. And I do want to thank Vice President Mitchell for our help on this. She was very quick in her response, and also the city engineer, Ness, did a great job, I believe, in making this proposal. And I did walk around the neighborhood, and there is overwhelming support for this proposal, so I urge you to approve it.
Thank you, Mr. Legal. I see that Councilmember Strobel has a question. This gentleman right here.
Thank you. You mentioned the duplexes and all the vehicles parking on the road. You and your neighbors do realize that they may now park in front of somebody else's house. Because there's no parking in front of their house doesn't mean they can't park someplace else?
Yeah, we considered that, but we think getting away from the stop sign so we have a shot at the stop sign without going into the other lane is way better than having to back up the traffic further up the street. I mean, I live right there, so I'm probably going to be affected by it, but the fact of the matter is when we get up to the stop sign on that curve, when there's, and just tonight I came, there was 2 cars parked there, and it's really hard to see the traffic coming on Stein Boulevard, and they don't obey the speed limit on Stein Boulevard. So, you know, this has given us an easier chance to get onto the boulevard safer.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Legal. Anyone else for Jill Avenue? Okay. I think we have a couple more projects.
One more area.
Okay.
So the last area for the discussion this evening is Putnam Drive. On the north edge of the 3rd Ward, it is the gateway into Putnam Park. Currently, curb and gutter ends at this location. The road narrows down to a gravel surface as it enters the park. This is a picture of Putnam Drive as you are going into Putnam Park. Curb and gutter ends here. That's where the parking prohibition is proposed, and then it continues into the turnaround area that you see here, as denoted by the little the shading right there. Here's an aerial photo of it as well. It's a little bit hard to see with the vegetation, but where the parking prohibition starts here, and then it continues into the turnaround area there. We have taken calls from refuse haulers, in particular, about the difficulty when cars are parked on that gravel area off the end of the curb and gutter area of the street in this area here. If 1 or 2 cars are parked here, it makes it very difficult to have a large vehicle be able to stay in the center of the trail, reach the turnaround, and then drive out. In some instances, it was relayed to us that they would have to back out this long dead end. It's in essence over 800 feet that they would have to back out because they were not able to access the turnaround. In addition to helping facilitate the operational concerns for not only refuse haulers but our snow removal crews, I think it's prudent to keep people, if they're parking in that area, using Putnam Park, either walking through it or using a bicycle through it, to have them park on a hard surface instead of on a gravel surface as you go into the park. It's much more durable. It doesn't cause the amount of maintenance that would need to be done to keep the trail open. If they are able to park where the street is wider, where we have a hard surface, and then go that little extra distance into the park from here forward. So due to operational concerns and environmental concerns, we support prohibiting parking in this location. With that, I'll take any questions.
Councilmember Strobel.
Thank you, Mr. Solberg. Is Putnam Drive one way?
Putnam Drive's one way, yes.
Which way?
Goes,
It's the other way, right? Do you have to enter through the university and come?
huh.
That's what I thought when I tried to drive through there. Oh, is it, I'm assuming
Okay.
that's why there's a turnaround there.
All right, yeah, it's
Because-
because I may have been in error the last time that I drove through. So it's been a while since I've gone past this turnaround here, yes.
And so my question with that is, I did the same thing. And is it signed well enough? And can we maybe have a sign that there's a turnaround there, that, so people that are maybe entering the wrong way are aware that they don't have to back out of there?
It has a turnaround ahead sign on here. But, there could be up around the, better signage for wrong way or stop. But this is coming in, when you're coming in from Putnam Drive, they do have the turnaround.
I'm looking at that sign. It tells you how fast you can go as well. And if you're not supposed to be driving down there, that seems maybe not a good idea. I don't know. I would ask you to maybe look at that for us.
For better signage?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yes.
we can do that.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Thank you. I should know this too, but on the paved part of Putnam Drive, the street part, is there parking on both sides of that street?
Yes, there are no parking restrictions on the paved part of Putnam Drive.
Have you ever had any questions about that?
We haven't taken any calls in the last 3+ years that I've been here on Putnam Drive. There are restrictions as you go deeper into the neighborhood, a street over, further to the southwest. And then when you get into more of the heart of the Third Ward, then there are more restrictions. But in this area, there aren't restrictions. I know Russ Street is rather narrow also, but you can park on both sides.
Councilmember Strobel.
Thank you. One more question. Is there a reason it's one way? Is it that narrow, or just for safety?
It is very narrow, and it has a partial right-of-way also for widening. And I don't, again, it's been a long time, and when I may have gone the wrong way through there, I was not working at the city. I don't know if there's a need to have I don't know if there's a need to have two ways of traffic through there. I think it's nice to go just one way.
Okay, we'll move on.
Okay, then I'll take any other questions.
Unless anyone else wants to confess anything tonight? No? Councilmember Von Hayden.
This doesn't relate to this project, but this is the end of the projects. Could you, for tomorrow evening for us on the Doty Street and at Newton over there, could you give us a drawing if that area was not restricted, where that actually is and what it would look like?
I will. I know that's an older area of the city with older streets. There are pavers underneath it, and it goes down to the Forest Hill Road that was recently restored. So we didn't have a city project up there, a formal project, but I can make a sketch of what the maintenance activities were up there for that.
Yeah, more so in the area where that 30-foot wide is, so if we would decide that shouldn't be parking, at least we're looking at the right spot.
Yep, I can do that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Klinkin.
I was going to ask a similar question, and maybe it is the same question, but I guess the two things that I want to know is it in fact 30 feet? And if we move the no parking restrictions to where it narrows, what that distance is?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
And I see no further questions. I'll just ask briefly if anyone's here to speak about the Putnam Drive project. Seeing none, then the chair will close that item for tonight. We do have one public presentation tonight. Councilmember Weld attended the 2017 National League of Cities Summit in Charlotte, North Carolina. And as is our expectation, in exchange for the honor of going to a conference, the we require that we give a report about findings while at the conference. So, Councilmember Weld.
Thank you, Council President. I did feel very lucky and fortunate to go. I got to go to Charlotte, North Carolina for the NLC. It was sunny and warm every day, and obviously that made it a little more enjoyable as well. Over 4,000 community leaders were in attendance from all over the country, both council members and mayors and city representatives, all with firsthand experiences with their challenges that they face as a community. It didn't seem to matter what size the community or the location, they all seem to have the same discussions and focuses, and as we do: economic growth, public safety, housing, infrastructure, health, and education. We had astronaut Mark Kelly and his wife, the past Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, speak for the opening address, which was really, really done well and emotional, obviously, when she came out onto the stage, too. But they spoke about setting goals and getting through adversity and the joy that they take, in public service, mostly Miss Giffords. But they really did do a nice job and got people excited about the upcoming conference. It then closed with Irving Magic Johnson, which was, I guess, someone I didn't expect to be speaking at the NLC, but having now spent some time listening to his closing remarks, he's really done a lot and spoke of the 150-some communities throughout the United States that he's improved and enhanced, urban areas that were declining throughout the U.S. and really has made it his mission to improve those areas and make those lives better for those people living there. And he was really a good speaker too, and obviously the people enjoyed that a great deal. I thought overall it was everything that I'd hoped it to be and more. Probably it was educational, it was inspiring, motivational, and rewarding. And I did enjoy a great deal of it. The Expo Hall, my first experience at a big event like that, I learned quickly about making eye contact and not making eye contact while walking through the Expo Hall. I learned the hard way, and I got pulled in numerous times about subjects that maybe Mr. Solberg would be interested in, like patching concrete pavements and asphalt roads, but it was all very professional, and I learned a ton just walking through there each day and stopping each day at a different booth and getting to talk to the people. There seemed to be an abundance of social engagement apps. It seemed like, again, my first time there, but it seemed like every corner there was someone there that had something in that regard. Encouraging public interjection and creating greater community transparency was the goal of those, allowing people to express themselves via the internet. They had some monitoring software, a couple of companies did, allowing the community and staff, maybe committee representatives, to be a part of the strategic plan or the comprehensive plan, and where are we at on a day-to-day or weekly or monthly basis throughout that 1 year, 2 year, or 5 year period. And it would just document what's been completed, what hasn't, and so on. I thought that was interesting as well. Another one, again, all about social engagement, monitored all the social media that was going on in our area in the community. So anything that was posted on Facebook, anything that was tweeted on Twitter or Instagram or Pinterest, anything that was related to Eau Claire or thoughts and feelings about Eau Claire, they gathered all that, deciphered it, analyzed it, and then presented the data, which was interesting. They had some examples of that as well, and it seemed like an idea. Whether or not it's appropriate for Eau Claire, I don't know, but it was a large part of it was seemed to be centered on that. hundreds of exhibitors, and again, all interesting and informative. For me, the highlight was the work sessions. I enjoyed every minute I was in there. I bounced around as much as I could. As far as what I attended, the topics, the opioid epidemic, which is obviously becoming a huge issue throughout the United States. The statistics were staggering, and, the stories and such were heartbreaking and just amazing what's going on in some states in the southeastern United States, how bad that problem is. I sat on the Equitable Economic Development work session. Interesting, Catherine Pugh, who's the mayor of Baltimore, was there as one of the panelists. And that morning before, when I had just gotten to Charlotte, I watched her on the Today Show. She was speaking about a police officer that had been shot and killed that morning, and the fact that they've had over 300 murders in Baltimore. And so she's there speaking firsthand about economic development and redevelopment of the Baltimore community. And I thought, just really well done. I think the people they brought in, the panelists and such, were really did a good job to bring it all together for all sizes of communities. What else did I see? The affordable housing I sat in on, boosting economic development through city branding, which I thought was interesting as well. The increasing role of city service fees, shared costs and services with neighboring communities, public and private funding. I also sat in the art work session, which was I thought really well attended, a lot of interaction with the panelists, a lot of good data that I thought that they shared with us. And I thought their message was really clear too and important. Talks about currently 1 in every 3 Americans are age 50 or older right now. They talk about our economy, as strong as it is and how thriving it is right now, that it is due to that 50 and older age group that is driving that for the U.S. By 2030, they project there'll be more than 70 million people over the age of 65 living in the United States. And so it talks about city planning and not just looking at millennials, but looking at the baby boomers, and are we being proactive in that regard too? They strongly believe and suggest that they both want the same things, baby boomers and millennials, affordable housing, walkability, parks, good public transportation. I mean, that's really what all age groups, from the baby boomers to millennials, are wanting, and how important that is to make that a part of our future planning as well. I think the most entertaining panelist was Mayor Paul Soglin from Madison. He was really good. I mean, he was in a big room, and he had a full house, and he had everyone really enjoying listening to him. He really had some creative ideas. He was there speaking about parks and green space. Obviously, if you've spent any time in Madison, it's filled with parks and green space. So I thought it was appropriate that he was a part of that. He talked about recent efforts and plans to increase the use and attendance of their parks, ideas that they've come up with, and really gave some really, what I thought, unique and creative ideas to strengthening neighborhoods, and in addition, assisting lower income families at the same time with what they were trying to propose with the city parks. He did get off topic and got into something other than green space and parks, but again, it was about parking, or not parking, but housing and new development. And Madison obviously is a growing community, and I thought they had some really good creative ideas in that regard too. And I think something about maybe us visiting, at least hearing some. I'd love to sit down with him. I tried to at the end there, and again, of all the presenters and panelists, you couldn't get to him afterwards, and I really wanted to pick his brain a little bit, because they really did have some interesting ideas. Let's see, the conference then closed at the annual business meeting. Obviously, NLC is incredibly active in Washington, D.C. It's on their website if you want to see what resolutions and amendments that they're working on now. Obviously, they're a huge lobbying group, but they really are doing a lot, and really with the best interests, with us as the best, in their best interest, the communities itself. Next year's NLC will be in Los Angeles, November 7th through November 10th. See, aside from all that, everything that I got to learn, I got to meet a lot of nice people, I had an opportunity to talk. Honestly, the biggest thing that I got from it was how well Eau Claire is doing. There are a lot of communities out there, large and small, that are struggling with residential commercial vacancy rates and crime rates and declining property values and shrinking populations. And so it was I really appreciated it to be able to speak about our successes, as a community. And people enjoyed, obviously hearing the good, the people that are succeeding and realizing successes. And so I really did leave there with at least a comforting feeling that we've done a lot. Our city leaders and staff have done an enormous amount, and I think we all should be thankful for that. Happy that we live in Eau Claire, because it's not the same everywhere else. So, any questions? Again, I recommend it if anyone hasn't gone. I know you probably hear that every time, but it was great for me just getting involved. So
We can tell a very important chapter, little story in your life there.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
Yeah.
It'll benefit us, too. Every time someone goes, it benefits us.
Yeah, I look forward to maybe sitting in with some of the commissions, because really there were some really, I thought, ideas that we could use now and in the future, too. So.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Well.
Thank you.
Question?
Thank you. Yes, I do.
Did I go over 10 minutes?
It's been, I think you did good.
Okay.
My experience, the last time I attended one, either the state or the national one, was similar. I think it was a strong affirmation about how well Eau Claire is performing and what a great place Eau Claire is.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is one, but there are always some that I thought, oh, we could do a better job at that. I guess in your experience, if there was one thing that we should be looking at hard in terms of how we're performing or how we're succeeding at something, what would it be?
I don't know if I could say one. I think I touched on some of them. I like the social engagement part of what's coming in the future, obviously with the internet. I think at least getting some sort of feedback. Maybe we do get a lot already. Maybe sometimes we get more than we're able to take in. But I did enjoy that. The branding, as far as economic development, I thought was interesting too. I haven't had much exposure with the Visitors Bureau other than being a part of some of their things. But the big thing that they focused on was trying to make the two entities the same. Rather than two separate, but I can't speak to how we're doing and how it's been doing. I guess I just thought it was interesting, their approach. The parks, they really, I'll just give you a couple examples. They really tried to get more people involved with the city parks, and so. Obviously I think it's the same here, and forgive me if we are doing some of these here now and I'm just not aware of it, but I thought that, those are already now that receive free meals at lunch in our school system. In the summertime, as I understand it, that isn't always the case. There isn't always going to be free meals for those, and if there are, great. But what they're doing in Madison is they're serving those free meals in the parks. On a daily basis, which gets the kids out of the house and to the parks and spending the day there, eating their lunch and enjoying it. They designate a night in in a different park each week where food trucks come in, and they try and they bring in picnic tables and seating, and rather than just say Phoenix Park, they're spreading it out throughout the community where they're getting all the food trucks to come, and they require the food trucks to offer at least one meal that's $2.50, so that a family can feed a family of four for $10 that night. And it only has to be that night. And then they'll have their other items too, but they're there for 2 or 3 hours, and maybe they bring in entertainment, but it gets the neighborhoods coming out, and the kids coming out, and the families coming out and doing things together in the neighborhoods. And that was really working, but I think we're doing a good job with our parks already, but I just thought that those were some good ideas. The development side of it, the housing side of it, you know, and I heard it several times, they talk about pluses and minuses to minimum lot sizes and for affordable housing and parking requirements. I mean, several city leaders were strongly against those things because they feel like it makes affordable housing more difficult. But again, those are just comments that were made. I probably went a little farther than you wanted, but any other questions?
Well, thank you for sharing your insights and the things that you will share over the next coming months with staff and
Sure.
the rest of us. Thank you. That does bring to a close our public meeting for a public portion of the meeting tonight. The City Council will now be adjourning into closed session as Chambers is clearing to hear a fire grievance before us per the city's labor contract with firefighters Local 487, which is permitted in closed session pursuant to statute 19.82 paren 1 and 19.85 paren 1 paren E of the Wisconsin state statutes. On a motion by Councilmember Emanuel, seconded by Councilmember Tewalt, the motion to go into closed session is before you, and discussion is in order. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Emanuel. Aye. Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
Tewalt.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Zhang.
Aye.
We'll just take a few minutes of preparation, and then we will be in closed session.
The Eau Claire City Council meeting will return in a moment. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM. We now return you to the Eau Claire City Council meeting.
This meeting of the Eau Claire City Council will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton. Emanuel. Here. Kincaid.
Here.
Klinkhammer.
Here?
Mitchell. Here. Strobel.
Here.
Tewalt.
Here.
Von Hayden.
Here.
Weld.
Here.
Worthman. Zhang.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, and welcome everyone to the Tuesday, December 12th, 2017 session of the Eau Claire City Council. During its legislative session, the council deliberates and takes action on the agenda items before us. We have prepared for this responsibility by working with citizens and collaborating with staff and reading the considerable amount of materials in our packets. We do arrive this afternoon ready to exercise our duty. We welcome those of you who are joining us in chambers and are grateful, as always, to community television for streaming and broadcasting these proceedings for people who cannot attend in person. With that introduction, we have important items on our agenda this afternoon, and we will get going with them. Our work begins with the consent agenda. Do members have questions or wish to remove an item for separate consideration? No? Seeing no such desire, on a motion by Councilmember Emanuel, seconded by Councilmember T-Walt, the consent agenda is moved and discussion is in order. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Emanuel.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Walt.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
And the consent agenda is passed. We move next to our business agenda, which begins with item 12, a resolution granting a temporary Class B fermented malt beverage and temporary Class B wine license to the Chippewa Valley Home Builders for the Home and Garden Show in February. Ms. Stromberger.
Thank you. This is an event in its 40th year, but this is the first time that they're asking for a temporary beer and wine license. They're looking to serve alcohol Friday night from 5 to 8 and Sunday afternoon from 12 to 4 during their event. They'll use volunteers to monitor entrances and exits of the building. They'll be checking IDs near where they're serving. They'll use wristbands to mark those who are 21 and over, and no one without a wristband will be served. And they will post no alcohol beyond this point signs on the doors. The committee had no objections to granting this license, and the applicant is here as well if there are any questions.
Questions for Ms. Stromberger? Do you know if the applicant wishes to speak? No. Okay. Sometimes people like to talk about their event. Okay, thank you, Ms. Stromberger. And on a motion by Councilmember Weld, seconded by Councilmember Klinkhammer, item 12 is moved and discussion is in order. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Walt.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Emanuel.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 13 is a resolution granting a reserve Class B intoxicating liquor and fermented malt beverage to the Shanghai Bistro. This is a reserve license. I don't know if I said that correctly.
Yes.
Ms. Stromberger.
Thank you. It is an application for a reserve Class B license. The location was previously licensed and will be under the same ownership that it was under previously. Remodeling is currently underway with the plan to open early in 2018. They'll be open Monday through Saturday, closed on Sundays. And again, the committee had no objection to granting this license, and the applicant is here as well.
Questions for Ms. Stromberger or the applicant? I see none. Thank you. And on a motion by Councilmember Von Hayden, seconded by Councilmember Mitchell, item 13 is moved and discussion is in order. Does the applicant wish to? No, excuse me. I'm going to take back that question. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Walt.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Emanuel.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye. And that resolution passes. Item 14 is a resolution granting a combination Class B intoxicating liquor and fermented malt beverage and cabaret license to the Ivory Piano Bar. Ms. Stromberger.
Thank you. So this is an application for surrender and transfer of an existing license at that same location, as well as a new application for the cabaret license. The applicant is hoping for a relaxed piano bar atmosphere in the location. They'll be bringing in professional pianists to play in evenings and on weekends. They plan to operate 2 p.m. to midnight Monday through Saturday and 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Sundays. They will not have a restaurant license at this time, but they may move in that direction in the future. And the committee had no objections to this license. I did not see that applicant in the audience today.
Questions for Ms. Stromberger? I see none.
Thank you.
Thank you. And on a motion by Councilmember Strobel, seconded by Councilmember Emanuel, item 14 is moved. Discussion? Yes. Councilmember Mitchell?
Thank you. I'm going to be voting no on this request. Other than the kind of furniture in the place, it's basically a tavern, and I think that I would like to see us pay a little more attention, look more closely at the number of taverns that we have in the community. These licenses are precious, and I think that it might be a good idea to have one available should an actual restaurant want it. So I'm going to be voting no.
Further discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Mitchell,
No.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Wald,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Next, we move into a resolution that extends the current health insurance plan with Group Health Cooperative of Eau Claire for one more year. Ms. Selton.
All right, before you is a resolution extending the current health insurance plan with Group Health Cooperative for 2019. You may recall last November, the council did approve extending the contract with Group Health for 2018 with a not-to-exceed rate of 5%. When I initially sent the packet materials out with the resolution, we were under the presumption that it was going to be a 4% premium increase, but I learned this morning that it is coming in at 3.5% for 2018. So this resolution would extend that contract with Group Health through the plan year of 2019, and the resolution had a not-to-exceed rate of 5%, but I've been told that it's going to be a not-to-exceed rate of 4%. And Pete Farrow is here to walk through the renewal with us. Oh, I have a handout.
Thank you, President Kincaid, and everyone on the committee, the council, and thank you, Ms. Sultan, for the introduction. I'm going to go through this quickly since Ms. Sultan took away my punchline. And there's no other way to do that. Because the health promotion program that Mr. Peters and I put into place over a decade ago now is such an integral part of this program, I just want to quickly review some of the components of that. The incentives are split and are a deductible forgiveness program, and you can see on the first slide the kind of summary of what those are and what adults covered by the program comply with in order to meet those various requirements, including filling out a health risk assessment, meeting with a coach, providing a tobacco use or tobacco non-use affidavit, and fulfilling their preventive screening requirements, which are both age and gender specific, and then meeting some body biometrics there. I want to just kind of walk through some of the success of the program. Our real goal is to keep as many people out of that far right category as possible. And because if you look at all the medical literature and the research, it will tell you that category of obesity is where you start to see significant increases in both health-related issues, healthcare costs and things, not only orthopedic and cardiac issues, which people normally expect, but also most cancers have a significantly higher prevalence among obese populations, and other causes of both decreased health status and cost, increased cost. And while the women in the group have ticked up just a little bit on the BMI side, and they are still tracking significantly ahead of the men. I've given this presentation to employees and spouses at times, and I've seen a lot of elbows flying around and things about it at this point. But what's interesting is, and the reason why we use more than one tracking number, is when you look at overall body fat percentage, where we go, the women have actually been trending down just a little bit in the very high category and moving over to that high category. And while that's still not optimal, literature would tend to suggest that is, I mean, healthier weight is always healthier, but keeping people out of that obese category is is really the important goal. And we set our target, and we've maintained that target for quite some time, of right in the middle of that overweight category, the high category. So we don't expect people to be at perfect weight and things like that, because the literature would say that a little bit above that isn't terribly harmful. This is an important one. This is really kind of cool because, well, we have been able to manage individuals down to a controlled blood pressure levels. Numbers like this are not seen in a general population. The typical working age population has uncontrolled high blood pressure or hypertension of around 18 to 20%. And so to keep these controlled levels down in the uncontrolled levels down in the 1.5% range means that, and over this period of time, I've talked to both cardiologists and our medical officer, and they all agree that at this level we are preventing significant events, both stroke and heart-related events. So this is a real win overall. The next one is just kind of a breakdown of people who have lost weight over the course of the year and the people who have gained weight over the course of the year. And it's hit and miss. We try and really kind of help these individuals, and like I said, our coaches engage several times a year with the individuals and engage at varying levels depending on how much individuals want to engage with our coaches. We have some that talk on a very regular basis and some quarterly, so we do what we can with that. Just a quick summary of the expense history. We have, when Mr. Peters and I started working on this years and years ago, our goal was to try and cut these increases in half of what the normal trends were. Over the course of the last decade, we've been able to manage a just under 3.5% average increase, and that's what we came in with this year. And a reminder that we are not an insurance company. Technically, we're a cooperative. We're licensed to provide insurance, but we are a different animal. And proof that I'm a terrible negotiator. After the city agreed to a 4% increase, I was looking over the data again this morning and preparing for the presentation, and said that we could shave about a half a point off of that. And my staff always looks at me like I'm insane, but I think that's a fundamental aspect of the cooperative and what we should do for our members and for our member companies. So we reduced that number to 3.5% this morning. That represents about a $69,000 savings for the city over the course of a year. So that's our current proposal. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know I kind of sped through that compared to normal, but you look like you're on a roll.
Oh, Councilmember Strobel.
Thank you. The weight gain, weight loss chart, if I remember correctly, the city provides incentives to the employees. So if they potentially, I don't know if we're using it to pay their health savings account or what, is that part of your area, or is that part of the city area? When they're not meeting these goals, or they're gaining weight, they're maybe not getting the incentive from the city?
What we do, our coaches track it, and then we inform the Human Resources Department how many of the measures they met. So HR, in order to kind of protect people's health records and things like that, HR will know they qualified for 1, 2, 3, or 4 categories and base their and then we track the deductible program with the city and take care of it that way. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. I just want to make a comment. I would love to have you as my insurance company. 3.5% increase and a 4% guarantee next year is phenomenal, based on what I saw in the private sector individual market this year. So, I mean, I think it's unbelievable, and I think we're extremely lucky that we have this program.
This is, I mean, and to be honest, it's a partnership. The groups that we have that have active health management programs, health promotion programs in place are experiencing about half of the trend cost that our other groups do. We're somewhere between 6.5%, and 7% right now, so that we're still fitting in just about that half rate. I mean, this is there's a lot of effort that goes into this, both on our part but also on the city's part to maintain a culture that kind of promotes that. So it's a win for both. But thank you.
And further questions, Member Klinkhammer?
Thank you. Trouble with the light. Thank you also. I think it's great that our costs are lower than the industry and lower than we're projected. But I think more importantly, I appreciate what it means in terms of the health of our employees. Just out of curiosity, I don't know if this would be a question for you or for Mr. Peters. We tracked absenteeism over the period of time that we've been involved with this program and seen what that has happened with the health indexes here.
Mr. Peters?
Thank you. We do track absenteeism. We also track workers' compensation rates, we can say, I think that, you know, the emphasis that we've had on overall health has helped us improve our absenteeism is going down, and you know, we've actually had a couple years where workers' compensation, we've had no claims, you know, under workers' compensation for lost claims or lost time claims. So it's a multi-pronged approach. It's not just the health insurance program, but you know, we have on-site yoga, we've got boot camps, we've got, you know, different programs and initiatives that happen, all geared towards exactly what you said, which is to try to have a healthy workforce that can serve the citizens.
And further comment? Mr. Farrell, the chair just has a question for you about whether the program that you have with the city is customized, and do you customize your programs for other entities that you work with, as far as like figuring out, well, what are going to be our metrics and the values therein, and do you have the energy to do that kind of work?
Yeah, on the health promotion program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, we do. The incentives all look a little different from group to group.
Okay.
Based on the size of deductibles, how they want to do that. Sometimes it's more of a premium cost sharing. Sometimes it's more of a deductible thing and things like that, or just a flat dollar payment, depending on the employer group and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the interventions will vary. This is the program that we have with the city is among the most active ones we have. And it's, like I said, it's really only possible because of the support that we've had from the city to be able to do those, and the culture that the city has had, as Mr. Peters pointed out, and having regular programs that are constantly going on and things like that.
Are we a large group in compared to the other contractual groups you have?
Yeah, and we have a lot of groups that have significant numbers of employees and activity, but of our larger groups, this is the most aggressive culture in terms of supporting our programs.
And lastly, does it matter the nature of the work such that people who, you know, are snow plowing or trimming trees, it's very active and maybe even a little risky? Are you able to factor all of that in the health promotion thing?
Yeah, and we don't see a whole lot of kind of discernible variation from the, you know, you might expect some between, say, office employees and, you know, and the external staff and things like that, and we haven't. Different comments. When I've done presentations down at the Works Garage and things, they're a more engaged group. They're kind of fun to talk to, but other than that, no, not really. We've looked for that and tried to find some differences, and there really haven't been that much variation.
Yeah, it's just interesting for us to keep learning about our workforce, we as policymakers, and so it helps us just to, I guess, know as much detail as we can.
Right.
So, as policymakers,
well,
of course.
We can pull some of that information out and separate some of those things out by I think we have it broken out by area. I'm not sure. And if we can, we'll pull that out.
Yeah, and it's okay. It's a matter of just being well-informed policymaker is
well,
our
you got
job.
me intrigued now, too,
That's
so
our
I
job.
want to look at it again. So.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions? Councilmember Mitchell.
So do you do, or does someone do research on our program, it being so successful, and then do you share that information with other cities or groups? Do you publish your results?
We have shared it with a number of groups. We have tried to share it with the State of Wisconsin and the Department of Employee Trust Funds as a model. They've chosen not to follow that path, but they hear about it quite often. They're tired of hearing about it. I think the results follow a lot of national trends of groups that have very active health promotion programs. Typically nationally, if a group has a very active program, they'll see a trend that's somewhere around half of the average cost increase, which is just about where the city falls.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell.
Thank you very much.
And Councilmember Emanuel.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question for the city manager. I appreciate the work that's been done here and understand that this is just that this is a one-year renewal, extending this. Can you talk a little bit about the process of what happens after the renewal, and will it be a competitive bidding process, or what does that look like as we consider what might happen after this?
Mr. Peters.
Thank you. So each year, we analyze how we want to proceed, going forward. And so just to clarify, this is a renewal that will then extend through the end of 19. And so we look at the program, we look at what other options are, and then make a decision on whether or not to essentially continue on the path that we've had, or to go out and put it into a competitive marketplace. We have done that in the past, where we've gone out, and certainly one of the trademarks of our hallmarks of this particular program is that it is with a cooperative, and essentially the way this is working is we are self-insured to the extent that if you look at this over time, and you look at the loss ratios that are there, we are paying our claims over time. So to the extent that the claims are greater than the premium in 1 year, then the premium goes up. Years that it's not, we don't. And so it's group health is a not-for-profit cooperative. So when we look at comparing that to, say, a for-profit company, there's other administrative and overhead and things that go like that. And we've had experience where we've gone out and had a quote from a private insurance company that undercut, essentially, and we chased that. And the year after that, we had a 57% increase. And so one of the principal factor in weighing out whether to continue with this program or, chase a low bid from year to year is the stability of the program. And as long as we've been seeing results that are less than what we see out in the marketplace, we have stability with the employees, we have stability with the cost, it's our recommendation to continue with the program as it is. But each year, we have this opportunity to say, it's not quite working for us, or maybe we do want to look at some other options. So each year, we do take a look at that and make a decision on it.
Thank you. May I follow up? Thank you. With this type of process, if I understand correctly, each year we're at a crossroads of, do we want to entertain perhaps looking at additional options or not following or not pursuing competitive bidding process. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Strobel.
Just as a follow-up to that, when is the last time we did put it out? Do you know?
It'd be about 10 years.
And further questions? If not, I will move this item on a motion by Councilmember T. Welt, seconded by Councilmember Welt. And discussion is then in order. Councilmember Von Hayden.
I believe we have to make an amendment to the rates in the resolution consistent with what Group Health Co-op just proposed? Or do you have something there, Dale?
My fault. I
Oh, do we have
failed
a
to,
substitute here?
I failed to
I missed it.
remind council members that there is a substitute resolution before you on your desk with the correct rates as stated by Ms. Selton.
Okay, then I retract.
My fault, yeah, my fault. Any further discussion? Councilmember Van Hayden.
I would just like to thank Group Health Co-op, Dale Peters, and more so, our employees, because as has been stated, the success of this health program relates to our employees doing a lot of things in conjunction with the staff of Group Health Co-op to make themselves a better opportunity to have a healthier condition. And to be, by that, because health insurance is nothing more than what the group basically utilizes, and if they do a good job of holding down the healthcare costs, the insurance companies can come in with the reasonable rates. And this is where it's wonderful to see the groups working together to come up with the best result for the city of Eau Claire. So I thank all parties, especially the employees of the city of Eau Claire.
And thank you. And there being no further discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strobel,
Aye.
T. Walt,
Aye.
Van Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye. And that resolution passes. Item 16 on our business agenda is a resolution declaring property at 2300 First Street excess land and authorizing the sale of such land to the redevelopment authority. Ms. Basom. Afternoon.
All right. So before you is a resolution declaring the property at 2300 First Street excess land and authorizing the sale to the RDA for the purpose of them having the opportunity to convey the property to a developer at a later date. There is no developer in mind at this point, but it would allow them the opportunity to advertise it and look for a developer for the property. The size of the property is 83,075 square feet. The proposed transfer fee is $1. The property was acquired before 1951, and it has no tax effects. Are there any questions?
Questions for Ms. Basom? I see none.
Thank you.
Thank you. And on a resolution, on a motion then by Councilmember Van Hayden, seconded by Councilmember Mitchell, item 16 is moved. Discussion? There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember T. Walt,
Aye.
Van Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 17 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of a section of property along Hewitt Street, accepting the conveyance of a temporary easement and granting the conveyance of a permanent easement. It sounds very complicated.
It's not too bad.
Not too bad.
No. Okay. So here's the property we're looking at. This is the Hewitt Street. We own this parcel of land here. We need to acquire a 50-foot section for a lift station purpose. The 25-foot section along this edge would be for the construction, just a temporary easement for construction purposes of the lift station. And we would be granting a 10-foot easement back to Xcel Energy for the northern section here for the purposes of utilities. The property is Hewitt Street, and along this edge is the Old Wells Road. That's where it gets a little confusing. The address is listed at Old Wells Road, but the property is actually right along Hewitt Street, and we would combine the parcels for the purpose of the lift station. The property would be sold to Xcel for $16,303. The price was based on comparable sales within the area. We worked with the assessor's office to come up with an agreeable price, and with that, I will take any questions.
Councilmember Mitchell? Thank you. I was just curious of why it says Northern States Power Company.
That is an affiliate of Xcel, that they're one of the same.
They're the owners?
Yep.
So-
Yep.
Okay.
And I see no further questions. Thank you. And on a motion by Councilmember Strobel, seconded by Councilmember T-Walt, item 17 is moved. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel, Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Walt.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 18 is a resolution approving appointments and reappointments to our various boards, commissions, and committees. And as is our habit, the chair will read the recommended appointments into the record. The Appointments Committee recommends the following people to be appointed. The list is a little bit long. So, to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, a new appointment to expire in December of 2020 of Ann Francis, and reappointments to expire in 2020 of Catherine Lee and Eric Nelson. To the Landmarks Commission, a reappointment to a term to expire in 2020 of Brady Faust. To the North Barstow Medical Business Improvement District Board, 3 reappointments to expire in 2020. Jason Craig, Vicki Hain, and John Mogensen. To the Redevelopment Authority, a new appointment to expire in 2022, Connie Peterson. And to the South Barstow Business Improvement District Board, a new appointment to expire in 2020, Becky Adamski-Krishke. And reappointments to expire in 2020, Will Glass, Benny Haas, Reverend Scott Kirby, and Mike McCorney. To the Sustainability Advisory Committee, a new appointment to expire in 2019, James Schumacher. And to Waterways and Parks Commission, a new appointment to expire in 2020, Jenny Sterling. And reappointments to expire in 2020, David Lehman, Susan McLeod, and Joshua Miller. And lastly, to the Zoning Board of Appeals, a new appointment to a term to expire in 2020 of David Nelson, and a reappointment to expire in the same year, William Betcher. Do council members have questions regarding any of these recommended appointments? On a motion and by Councilmember Mitchell, seconded by Councilmember Emmanuel, item 18 is moved and discussion is in order. There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Walt,
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
And that resolution is adopted. We move through our business agenda with item 19, a resolution allowing the application process for the 2018 Federal Mass Urban Transit Operating Assistance and Capital Assistant Grants with the Federal Transit Administration, the FTA. Ms. Adams?
Thank you and good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Before you is a resolution to allow the Transit Division, under the direction of the City Manager, to apply for the 2018 5307 Federal Urban Transit Operating Assistance and the 5339 Capital Assistance Grants with the Federal Transit Administration. In the past, we have brought the approval for the FTA grants to the City Council, but we feel it's to our advantage to ask for approval of the grant application as well. The federal operating grant needs to be executed prior to the end of the federal fiscal year, which has caused us a time crunch in the past between applying for the grant and having City Council approve the agreement. And I just want to make a note that the dollar amount on the agenda summary cover sheet is incorrect, and the amount we will be applying for is $787,100. Any questions?
Questions for Ms. Adams? So we haven't approached it this way before as far as we're giving you approval to start the grant process,
That's correct.
to take care of that sort of time crunch that we used to run into?
Correct. And we will come back to council once we get the grant to execute the grant.
Does it help that there's a resolution, showing our acceptance, or does that help the application
Correct.
at all? Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Adams. And I see no further questions. You have several items I see on the agenda coming up. And on a motion, let's see, where am I? A motion by Councilmember T-Walt, seconded by Councilmember Weld. Item 19 is moved. Discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Emmanuel,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell. Strobel,
Aye.
T-Walt,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. A related resolution allows the application for the process of the 2018 Transit Operating Assistance Grants with the State of Wisconsin Department of Transportation. I believe Mr. Pippinger left a note for us at our desk with a revised resolution. It is before you. It's a stapled piece of paper. So we will be referring to the revised resolution in our discussion. Ms. Adams?
Thank you. Before you is a resolution to allow the Transit Division, under the direction of the city manager, to apply for the 2018 8520 Transportation Operating Assistance with the State of Wisconsin Department of Transportation. The grant amount that we will be applying for is on the items that were at your desk, which is $1,402,900. The deadline to apply for the 8520 funds with the state is December 15th. In the past, we would apply for the grant prior to the deadline and then request approval from the city council for the opportunity to execute the state agreement. Requesting approval prior to submitting the application is more appropriate, and we will continue to request this authorization each December.
Questions for Ms. Adams? On a motion by Councilmember Klinkhammer, seconded by Councilmember Von Hayden, item 20 is moved. Discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Walt,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. And finally, a resolution authorizing, not finally for our meeting, but finally for this group of items. Right. Don't leave. A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the 2018 Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 supplemental agreement between the city of Eau Claire and the city of Chippewa Falls. Ms. Adams?
Thank you. Before you is the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the 2018 Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 supplemental agreement between the City of Eau Claire and the City of Chippewa Falls. As you may recall, in July, Mr. Wagner brought to City Council the agreements for the years 2017, 2014, and 2015 retroactive. We will continue to request this authorization each December for the following year so that it won't be missed. Any questions?
I see. No, but
Okay.
I see. Thank you, Ms. Adams. And on a motion then by Councilmember Mitchell, seconded by Councilmember Strobel, item 21 is moved. Discussion. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Walt,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye. And that resolution passes. By the way, perhaps I can take just a little pause to, I hear my fellow council members wondering who Ms. Adams is. And so we're a small enough group, we can just take a little pause and say, Ms. Adams is our new business analyst who works across departments to help us with grant applications and brings considerable financial expertise that I was going to say we were lacking, but that doesn't sound good, but that augments our already expertise that we have. Mr. Peters, anything to add?
No, only that you're absolutely right. So Ms. Adams was, if you recall, in the budget, we had a business analyst position in our community services department. And Ms. Adams has been with the city for quite a while in our finance department and assumed the role of the business manager and is just doing an excellent job of getting used to and comfortable with the idea of the grants and managing all of that process. And so, yes, you did see her tonight for her presentations to the council. And you'll see more of her.
Good, and welcome. We move forward with our agenda then with item 22, which is a resolution approving the memorandum of understanding between the city and the Eau Claire Figure Skating Club. Mr. Pippinger.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Before the City Council is a memorandum of understanding by and between the City of Eau Claire and the Eau Claire Figure Skating Club. This MOU is for the Eau Claire Figure Skating Club to provide funds to install an off-ice jump harness in the acrobatic rink of Hobbes Ice Arena. All the costs of purchasing the jump harness will be provided by the Eau Claire Figure Skating Club, including the installation and the ongoing upkeep and repairs. Here's an example of one of the jump harnesses that we have at the figure skating. This is an on-ice jump harness. But what it does is that the skater will actually put the harness on and the coach or the instructor will control the jumps so they can be done safely. So when they go up and they do their twirls, they can do that without having to hit hard on the ice. In the off-ice one, this will be done on not on the ice, but over the off ice where they can do their twirls and practice that to get their timing down. This memorandum of understanding includes the responsibilities of the city, the Eau Claire Figure Skating Club, in terms of the agreement. The Department of Community Services finds that this partnership will be beneficial to the parties and the community as a whole by creating a new amenity at Hobbes Ice Arena. Mr. Steve Southworth is here to answer any questions that you might have. He is the president of the Eau Claire Figure Skating Club, and of course, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have also.
Questions for Mr. Pippinger? Councilmember T. Walt.
I'm not really understanding the graphic you have. Perhaps if we could get a video with you demonstrating it would help me fully understand what's before us.
I might get a leg in there.
Thank you.
Does the gentleman wish to talk about the program? Okay. And I see no further questions. Thank you for pursuing this partnership. And on a motion then by Councilmember Von Hayden, seconded by Councilmember Mitchell, item 22 is moved. Any discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
T-Walt.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Emmanuel. Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 23 is a resolution approving an addendum to the lease agreement between the City of Eau Claire and the Outdoor More, Inc. For property in Pinehurst Park. Mr. Pippinger.
Thank you. Before the City Council is an addendum to the lease between Outdoor More and the City of Eau Claire. In 2016, the city entered into a lease agreement with Outdoor More to construct, build, and install amenities to Pinehurst Park. such as ski, snowboard, cross-country ski, mountain bike, and similar sports area. To date, the group has made several improvements to the park that has added several new amenities for the citizens of Eau Claire. The following will be added to the lease agreement. Notice of organized activity let the city know when any organized activity is being undertaken by Outdoor More. Notice shall be a minimum of 24 hours in advance. Special event application will need to be completed for any activity Outdoor More coordinates, sponsors, or otherwise involved with that meets the criteria of a special event. A work plan that has a quarterly update to staff of all planned, completed work and development within the lease area. A neighborhood notification of the surrounding neighbors to update of planned development by Outdoor More. Staff feels this added addendum will help in the communication of projects as they are planned, constructed, and completed. I do not see anybody here from Outdoor More to talk upon it, but they were fine with the addendum, and they actually signed the agreement. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Pippinger? Do you have a question?
Oh, sorry.
I see none. And on a motion then by Councilmember Strobel, seconded by Councilmember Emanuel, item 23 is moved and discussion is in order. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strobel,
Aye.
T-Walt,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel.
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye. And that resolution passes. Next, we move into a series of land use issues, beginning with item 24, which is a resolution approving the first addendum to the final condominium plat at 222 Water Street. Mr. Tufti.
Yeah, this is the addendum 222 Water Street condominium. This is Water Street and 3rd. The building sits in this area here. The original condominium plat divided the property into 2 units. Unit 2 was all the residential aspects of the building, and Unit 1 was the remaining commercial space on the main floor. The addendum takes that remaining commercial space on the main floor and divides it into 5 units so that they can be sold. Unit 6 on the west side of the building is tied to the parking to the west. Units 5, 4, 3, and 1 are tied to the parking to the east of the building and to the parking off the alley to the back. There's also a common element, which is a shared parking lot across the alley to the north. The addendum to the condominium plat does not change the use of the building, and still it provides its parking requirement. The revised condominium declarations will need City Attorney Office review. Planning Commission has recommended approval subject to the City Attorney's review of those amended bylaws.
Question, Councilmember.
Thank you. The commercial development, when you figure parking, are you figuring it as retail or as restaurants? Or how do we know until somebody buys those what their parking requirement is going to be?
We calculated on a 4-stall per 1,000, which would include office or retail. If they put restaurant in there, they may need to go back to Plan Commission with an amendment to their parking requirement.
Okay.
At this time, we're not aware of any plans for a restaurant in the building.
So this is a situation where, similar to what we potentially are talking about in the Block 7 area, where you may have individuals that may be able to own a commercial space.
Yes.
Within a building here. Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Tufti, since the condominium plots are of varying sizes, there must have been some planning that's already gone into who might occupy the space, or?
Yes, we know Unit 6 is a bank. We know that because of the drive-up facility on the west wall. They have hoped and planned for a small grocer in Unit 1. We're not aware if they've been able to retain that or not. And then the remaining spaces, I'm not aware of what they may be.
But we as a city don't really care if they're uniform or if they're we don't.
No,
We don't-
the only time we may get involved if it becomes a restaurant or bar, then we will get involved because the parking requirement is usually much higher.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Councilmember Mitchell?
I-
Can't see because your hand's.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can just note that one of the two small ones is occupied by Vibe
Okay?
uh,
I wasn't aware of that.
Herbalite place.
Okay.
That leads me to ask, do they have to sell or can they lease the?
They can still lease the space. The original owner, Mr. Mogensen, could retain ownership and lease, but this gives him the option if he so chooses to sell the property.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tufti.
Mhm.
And on a motion by Councilmember T-Walt, seconded by Councilmember Weld, item 24 is moved. Discussion. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember T-Walt,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Number 25 is a resolution approving the final plat for Creek Ridge 2, located at the west end of Creek Ridge Drive. Mr. Tufti.
This is the original preliminary plat for what was at that time called Sherman Estates. This is Cameron Street, West Vine, I-94. And we are on probably the 6th phase now of this development. Most of this area is all built out with single-family homes, and the project before you is up in the northwest corner. And this is then the final plat of what is now called then Creek Ridge 2. We have a new developer that now owns this and chose to rename it. But it's very similar to the original preliminary plat for the property. The final plat now creates 16 lots for single-family development. The original had 18 lots. These lots all still meet our design requirements for an R1 zoning. They have legally defined and labeled non-buildable, the backs of these lots, since they're on steep grade going down to Sherman Creek. They have provided our utility easements. They made a minor change in terms of roadway alignment. Instead of Creek Ridge Drive extending through to the property to the west, they have instead chose to extend Tate Avenue through to the property to the west, and that is a nice change in our mind in terms of better slowing down of traffic through this development. The Plan Commission has recommended approval of this final plat.
Questions for Mr. Tufti? I see none. So on a motion by Councilmember Klinkhammer, seconded by Councilmember Von Hayden, item 25 moved. Discussion. Councilmember Weld? Oh, okay. There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Walt.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 25 resolves the city manager to enter into a development agreement with Kent Homes for street and utility improvements in the condominium, or in the phase we just approved. Mr. Jensko.
This is the development agreement for the plat that you just approved. It's the same developer that did Creek Ridge 1. Provides for street and utilities for Tucker Trail and the extension of Creek Ridge. It's got a special conditions for financing. In this case, it's a letter of credit for $215,645. Right-of-way dedication, construction inspection, development review fees, and the future extension of Tate Avenue. We're not asking the developer to extend the road at this time, but we are asking him to grade it and grass it. The reason for that is, if you remember on the preliminary plat, there was a large chunk of land here. We don't quite know how they're going to serve that with utilities, so there may or may not be sewer in here, and we don't know for sure what this street grade will be to serve that. And so that's the reason for that condition, and that's not unlike other plats where it's been a similar thing. just like at the beginning of this plat, the developer had to build the road coming into it. So there was no request for sidewalk deferrals, so the sidewalk is per our ordinance. The construction of it will happen with the construction of the buildings on it. The one exception will be the south part of this right-of-way. The right-of-way is in the plat, so we're calling for the sidewalk at this time. When the next phase plats this area and that home gets built, that's when that sidewalk will be constructed with the construction of this home.
Questions for Mr. Jensko? I see none. Thank you. On a motion then by Councilmember Mitchell, seconded by Councilmember Strobel, item 26 is moved and discussion is in order. There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Walt,
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 27 resolves to create some new voting wards. Ms. Repo made a presentation on the necessity of doing such work last evening. Does anybody have any questions on that? And then on a motion by Councilmember Emanuel, seconded by Councilmember T-Walt, item 27 is moved and discussion would be in order. There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Emmanuel,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Walt,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
And that resolution is adopted. We have 3 ordinances for action tonight, the first being a charter ordinance relating to the city council and the reapportionment of aldermanic districts related to the voting wards that we just approved. Does anybody have questions from last evening? On a motion then by Councilmember Weld, seconded by Councilmember Klinkhammer, item 28 is moved. Discussion? And there being none, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8.
Councilmember Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Walt,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel.
Aye.
And that ordinance is adopted. Item 29 is a rezoning ordinance for Bullis Farm Road from C3P to R3P for a CBRF, community-based residential facility. Is that right? And an 80-unit, one now and some in the future. Questions for Mr. Tufti? I did have a call from a citizen today worried about the market saturation of assisted living, not CBRF. And we had a nice talk about it, but does your office think about that?
We normally avoid getting into market. That's what the
Yeah.
private sector does best. We do know there's a lot of facilities being built in the community right now, but we also know we're all getting older and probably will need them, so we're going
Yeah.
to stay out of it.
Yeah, we had a good talk, kind of around the same thing.
Yeah, and this also is a replacement facility, so they are closing up their old ones. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Sure, Councilmember Will.
Maybe a year ago that we had approved a site plan for assisted living by the old National or Kinko's FedEx
Yes.
on that corner. Are they still planning on, have you heard?
We've not heard from those folks for about a year now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks again. And on a motion then by Councilmember Von Hayden, seconded by Councilmember Mitchell, item 29 is moved. Discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
T-Walt,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye. And that ordinance is adopted. And finally, tonight, we have an ordinance amending some parking. We heard a long presentation last evening. Mr. Solberg does have added information and insight for the council this afternoon.
Thank you. At the presentation last night, residents were concerned on Newton Street with the width in front of their property or alongside of their property, Newton Street, Doty, and Dodge. We went out and checked, and as you approach Dodge Street, the street is wider in this area in front of or alongside of their property in excess of 30 feet, so it would allow for parking safely, as you can see from our aerial photo. So we did prepare a substitute resolution that would remove this area from parking prohibition and replace the map in this location. Last night's map included this area here. So we did prepare a resolution for consideration that would remove that and allow parking adjacent to that property. With that, I'll take any questions.
Councilmember Klinkhammer.
Thank you. Is it within our purview to assist this resident with advising her on some drainage issues? If the overlay on that street the last time we repaired it was a contributing factor to what her issues are with her driveway, is it something that we can help her with, or is it her responsibility?
Probably the best help that we could have in the short term is to work with our community services department for snow plowing to try and see if there's a way that they can remove snow. As far as drainage, there is no curb and gutter in this location here. There is some in front, but it would require the reconstruction of the road, which is on our radar in the future, and then we would have storm sewer and we would be able to adequately address that. But short of going in and reconstructing it, we would have to lower the road and put the infrastructure in for that. So we'd be treating a symptom right now if we can help with the snow removal.
Councilmember Strobel.
And so if you would have a conversation potentially with Mr. Thompson and the plowing crew, and if they can do something, it's an empty lot across the street, that potentially they could pile the snow on that side of the street if they can do it?
I'll have discussions with him, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for helping out with something you could see was a concern of ours, so thank you for helping us out with that. And on a motion then by Councilmember Strobel, seconded by Councilmember Emanuel, the ordinance is on your desk. The substitute ordinance is moved and discussion is in order. Councilmember.
Thank you. I just want to thank the engineering department and Mr. Solberg and particularly Ms. Ness for the attention to detail on the safety of the streets. I think that you are just gradually making small improvements that eventually, as a whole, is going to make the community a lot easier to travel on and a lot safer. And I know that the people on Jill Street really did appreciate Ms. Ness's help. So thank you.
Okay, nice. Did I move this? Okay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strobel,
Aye.
T-Walt,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
And before we adjourn, I have 4 ordinances for introduction. It's my job to read them into the public record. An ordinance rezoning property on the north side of Westover Road, west of State Street, from R1 to R1P, and to adopt a general development plan. Secondly, an ordinance rezoning property at 883 Grover Road from TR1A to R1, Residential 1. And third, an ordinance rezoning property at the southwest corner of Mount Washington Avenue and Menominee Street from TR1A to R1A and R1, residential changes. And lastly, an ordinance amending the zoning code for the splitting of 2 family residential lots, adding that a joint cross-access and maintenance agreement be recorded with the land division. Did I get that right? Okay. We'll learn more about that at the next meeting, unless you want to suspend the rules and take up any of these items. I see no such desire. Announcements are then in order. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a reminder that this is our last meeting of the year. We've canceled the meetings that otherwise would have happened on the 24th and 25th of December. So I would like to thank you for your service in 2017 and wish all of you a happy and healthy holiday season.
Thank you. Announcements by council members. Councilmember Stroll.
Well, I would just like to extend to all city staff and my fellow council members a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year as well.
And likewise.
Well,
Councilmember Klinkhammer.
consistent with the spirit, I think we should gather for a glass of cheer for a social bit afterward. Purely social.
And there being no further business to come before this body, on a motion by Councilmember T. Walt, seconded by Councilmember Weld, we are adjourned without objection.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689. Or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.